Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, today I'm going to be talking about the Juki Compensating Foot knitting bag fabrics from Suzuko Kozakai. The book review will be for Quilt Bag, and I'll be demonstrating how to make an infinity scarf with a cork or leather cuff. I'm Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday, my weekly sewing chat. Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday. It's so nice to see you beforehand on YouTube and Facebook chatting. I see Cindy's watching from Colorado, Lisa's watching, hi Deanna, Anita's watching also, and Trisha from Seattle, I think that was. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm so happy that you're here. I have a couple of things to tell you about, and then we'll get on to my favorite part, the notion of the week. So Danny and I had a few discussions after our last two live shows, and as Christmas Day falls on a Tuesday, which is our normal time slot for Ask Sarah, we've decided we're still going to make it to the live show technically, but we've decided to pre-record the content, and so it'll still show up at the normal time in the live format. However, it will be pre-recorded. We're still talking about what exactly we'll be showing, but my suggestion was a sewing room tour, just so you can see, not that we have a huge studio, but just so you can see kind of a little bit close up some of the fabric, how I store things, and let's just face it, some of the mess. So I think that's what we're going to be doing, and I'll just be having a chat on Facebook and YouTube on Christmas Day, because I really didn't want to miss out on that, even though it is Christmas. Next Sunday we'll be having sort of a little bit of an ugly sweater, Christmas sweater party. So if you'd like to send a photo in for that, and some of you have done so already, you can email your ugly Christmas sweater or ugly Christmas t-shirt if that's the case, like if you live in Australia or New Zealand and parts of the world that have summer right now. You can email those photos before next Sunday, so anytime this week, and my email address is sarah@sewsweetness.com, and that's Sarah with no H. Also, we are collecting recipes now through the middle of January for a Sew Sweetness community recipe book. So if you'd like to send your very best cooking recipe in, there's instructions on how to do that in the link in the description. There's a very special email address that you send that to, and we've included sort of a sample recipe just so that you can see what type of format we'd like you to email your recipe in. It's very basic, basically just the ingredients and instructions, your name and where you live, very simple. But if you'd like to do that, again, the instructions for how to do that as well as where to send it is in the link in the description. Okay, so before we get started, just a friendly reminder, just about everything that I talk about during Sewcial Sunday are things that I've purchased myself. So these are not things that I'm getting paid to talk to you about, but just cool things that I found that I'd like to share with you. And everything that I'm scheduled to talk about I link to in the description, so if you're interested in finding out more about any of the notions, fabrics, books, or projects that I talk about during Sewcial Sunday, just check that link in the description and you can find out more there. So for this week's notion of the week, I don't normally like to focus on a particular brand of sewing machine because I know everyone has different types, but I know a lot of you out there have Jukis, so I thought you might appreciate this. I got a new foot for my Juki. It's called 1.5 millimeter Compensating foot. So we shot a pre-recorded video just so we could show you close-ups what the foot looks like and how it is to sew with. So Danny's going to play that video for you right now. Again, this is the Juki 1.5 millimeter right compensating foot. Okay, so this is what the packaging looks like for the Juki 1.5 millimeter compensating foot. So I purchased the right compensating foot. There's also a left compensating foot available. So let me show you what the right compensating foot looks like. So the reason this is the right compensating foot is that on the right side, there's a metal piece with a hinge. And as you sew, this piece will go up and down. And this particular foot is really great for top stitching. So let me get this on the machine and show you how it works. Okay, so I have the foot on my sewing machine. As you can see, again, this is the right compensating foot, and this piece will go up and down as you sew. The great part is that, well, two great things about this. The first great thing is that I'm going to align the edge of my fabric against the side of this piece for some really nice top stitching. And as I come to some seams, this compensating foot will make the adjustment so that I can have a nice smooth line of stitches even over seams when top stitching a bag. So I've prepared 2 layers of foam interfacing with fabric just to simulate the top edge of a bag that you'll be encountering when top stitching. So I'm going to put the foot down and I'm going to align the edge of this foot with the side of my fabric. And as you can see, a perfect row of top stitching. It was really easy, and it was also easy for me to keep it even because I was lining it up with the edge of my foot. So that's the 1.5 millimeter right compensating foot from Juki. So what does that mean? All right, so I hope you enjoyed that look at that right compensating foot. It produces about 1/8 of an inch top stitch, which is really nice. I'm not sure whether different sewing machine brands have a similar foot, but they very well might. So you might want to investigate this if you have a sewing machine that's not a Juki. All right, so last week I wrote a new pattern for a contribution to the 4-pack video bundle that's coming out at the end of January. So one of the new patterns is that Park Sling backpack that I showed you recently on the show. And this second brand new pattern is for a knitting or crochet bag, or it could be for a project bag for another handcraft or another on-the-go crafting item that you make. So I wanted to show you, I don't have a finished bag to show you yet, but I wanted to show you 2 of the fabrics that I special ordered from Spoonflower. If you're not familiar with Spoonflower, you can order thousands of designs uploaded by independent fabric designers, or you can design your own fabric and upload your very own design. So for these 2 fabrics, I had them printed on Kona cotton. I like how the colors come out on the Kona cotton, and I think we're all pretty familiar with Kona or quilting cottons. And I kind of wanted to go with a knitting looking fabric, so I just wanted to show you the 2 fabrics that I chose. So I'm not a knitter myself, so I'm not sure what this stitch is, but I thought this was really cool, and I liked sort of the neutral, the navies with the neutrals. By the way, let me know in the comments if you do, if this stitch has a name. I'm sure it does. And I also purchased this other, I thought this was really cool. It looks like, it actually looks like yarn. In person, I wasn't 100% happy with the scale of this print because it looks a little bit pixelated, but there is a smaller version of this print on Spoonflower as well. And if I was getting this fabric printed again, I might try getting the smaller version. But I've linked to both of these fabrics in the description in case you like either of these and want to pick one of these up from Spoonflower for your own knitting bag. But that pattern, as soon as I finish it, I was hoping to work on sewing that knitting bag up tomorrow. As soon as I finish it, I'll show you on one of the live shows. So maybe next Sunday I'll have a new bag to show you on the show. So Danny's favorite part of our Sunday shows. Let us know in the comments if you're a bag lady or bag dude. Go ahead and type that in the comments now. If you've been with us a while, I'm sure I don't have to say it, but I super love our bag making community. It's always been supportive. I scarcely ever see any kind of negative or troll-like comment in the Facebook groups or in the chats. Everyone's super kind and helpful, so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, the new fabric that I've added to my stash this week are some new fabrics designed, well, not new fabrics, but new to me fabrics designed by Sewcial Kozakai. And I purchased from several different vendors on Etsy just because this is sort of, I believe the designer's from Japan. So let me slide over to the side camera and show you the fabrics that I picked up. So Sewcial Kozakai is known for texty type print fabrics. So I picked up a random assortment of fabrics, and most of them have text on them, which I thought was really cool. All right, so here's the first one I got, reds and blues, and the background is actually like a cream, it's not white. Kind of reminds me of the Postal Service or mail, which is why I liked this one. Here's another one. This is sort of a what's known as a cheater print. So it looks like patchwork, but it's just obviously one single piece of fabric. I thought this was cool. I liked the text elements. Of course, I love hexagons, and there's some sewing themed prints in there as well. There's some buttons over here. So thought this one was awesome as well. I got this one in another colorway also, which I'll show you kind of near the end. This one's actually a canvas fabric, also sewing themed, sewing and crafting themed. So there's some scissors, looks like embroidery floss, there's a spool of thread, there's some more thread over here. So I thought this one was really cool. I liked this one a lot. Here's some cross stitch over here. So just a variety of different handicrafts. And then I got a lot of text prints. This is kind of like a wine colored fabric with various text on it, and this is kind of cream and this is light gray. I love this blue one. This is a similar print but in blue. And then I got a few polka dot prints. You know me, I love a good polka dot, so I got a few prints with polka dots as well, polka dots with text. The red one's probably my favorite out of all of the polka dot prints that I got, but the black one, which I'll show you next, is really close behind. So I got smaller amounts of these polka dot prints. I thought I'd make some pouches, or maybe even a Zeppelin pouch. I think that would look really great. And this is almost sort of a peachy polka dot right here with the blue. Okay, I just got a couple more. This is a large scale text print. And it's got some fabric and sewing themed words on it. Scrap Magazine, Fashion and Beauty. I saw something that got cut off in regards to sewing, so all kind of sewing themed words right here. And then here's that second cheater print that I picked up. This one just has brighter colors than the first one. And again, there's some sewing themed things, texty. There's a dress form over here. So I really loved these. I think they're really unique fabrics, and I'm excited to make some little projects with them. So today the family and I went to downtown Chicago, right on the lakefront. We have Navy Pier, and they had a Christmas program called Winter Wonderfest, and Danny took a few photographs, and he's going to put some on the screen of what it looks like where we went today. So when you walk in, they had a snowmaking machine, which was, I mean, it was beautiful. There's us in line. And there's a few more pictures. They had an indoor ice skating rink, which is really cool. The kids got to ice skate for the very first time. They had sort of an indoor toboggan run. That was really fun. They went on that a bunch of times. And then there's that really huge tree in the middle. It was beautiful. So this was basically an event themed for families with young children. There were lots of bounce houses and carnival type rides, but really spread out so that it wasn't super crowded. And I think everything was really tastefully set up and decorated. It wasn't, it didn't remind me of a carnival, even though there were a few carnival rides. It was really well done. And it wasn't too crowded, which was really nice as well. We actually came home early though, because Violet went on, I have to admit, Violet's 10 years old. She's a daredevil. She'll go on high roller coasters. She'll go on just about any ride, but she went on, I don't know if you're familiar with carnival rides, but there was one ride. It kind of spins in a circle. It's called a gravitron, Danny says, but you kind of stick to the wall and it spins around in circles, and then it kind of tilts and it goes really fast. And I would never go on a ride like that, but it seemed like the ride was going on for longer than it should. And you should have seen her face when she came off that ride. She looked really sick to her stomach. She stuck it out for another, maybe about an hour. We went ice skating and did a few other things after that, but then she was just done for the day. She was not feeling well. I'm guessing it was motion sickness from that ride, but before that, it was a really fun day. We went with some friends, so unfortunately we had to come home early, but you know, where the kids are concerned, especially when you're doing something fun for the kids, it's important, you know, if one of them gets sick, just to cut out early and do what's best for the kids. But anyway, all in all, a really great day. I have a question for you, kind of Christmas related. But let me know in the comments, what did you ask Santa for this year? So maybe you asked for something special. I admit I asked for a couple of things that are kind of on the boring side. I requested a pillow for reading books in bed. So it's kind of like a oversized pillow with arms on it. I like to read in bed, but I feel like my regular pillows are not giving me support, and I've been noticing, it's gone away since, but I've been noticing some stress and kind of throbbing the back of my head, and I think it's due to posture and how I'm reading in bed and my head being kind of tilted at an angle. So I requested that bed reading pillow, and I also requested for my Kindle when I'm reading in bed. I found this kind of book pillow on Amazon. It's almost like a little pyramid that holds your book or Kindle. I notice, especially in the winter when I'm reading in bed, I like to have my hands in the covers and like not really poking out, but that's inconvenient when you're reading a book because you need to hold the book or the Kindle. So I asked for those two things, and I know they're super boring, but that's what I want for Christmas, Santa. All right, so the book review for today is called Quilt Big. It's a quilting book with all large quilt blocks. So I'm going to pop over again to the side camera and show you that book. So Quilt Big is written by Jemima Flint, and again, like I said, it's all large-scale quilt blocks to have you finishing up a quilt in no time at all. So let me show you some of the projects in the book. Of course, every quilting and sewing book starts off with teaching you some basics, basic quilt making as far as binding and sandwiching your quilt. And then there's the block. So it gives you information for how many blocks to make based on what size quilt you'd like to make. So all of the block instructions are in the front of the book, and then the second half of the book shows you how to use those blocks in quilt pattern design. So all the block instructions are combinations of photographs and illustrations, so everything's really laid out very simply, and all of the blocks are really easy to put together. It's all traditional piecing. There's no foundation piecing or applique or anything like that. And then let me skip ahead to showing you the projects in the book. Okay. So this is actually my favorite project in the book, half square triangle quilts. I'm not normally a fan of half square triangles. However, since these blocks are so big, I think I can manage putting together something like that. Flying Geese is another project in the book. Lozenge, here's the main photo, and let me see if there's just an illustration, so there's not a flat picture of that particular quilt. Bow tie, and again, all of these quilts use blocks that that you were instructed to put together at the front of the book. Log cabin, which is a really traditional block. I really love the different colors and fabrics and prints used. Simplex star. There's a churn dash quilt in the book as well. This one's called Home Treasure. And there's another photograph of that same quilt. Here's a string block pillow. And I really love the soft colors used in some of the prints chosen for the quilt blocks. This one's called the Constellation Sampler quilt, and this uses several quilt blocks from the beginning of the book. Indian Star Mini. This is another pillow project. It's called Hearth and Home. It's sort of a plus quilt block. This is the Strip Heart quilt. The Mosaic quilt. I really love this one as well. Here's a table runner. It's called Indian Block. And I think this might be the last one. Scrappy half square triangle pillow. And yep, that's it. So again, this was Quilt Big, and it's written by Jemima Flint. And if you're interested in this book, the link is in the description so that you can read more about that Quilt Big book. So if you enjoy our live shows and our sewing videos and tutorials, if you're watching on Facebook, if you could go ahead and hit the share button now, share this video with your other sewing friends on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can go ahead and subscribe now so that you're first to be notified of our live shows and any new videos that we come up with. Regardless if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, if you could at least hit the like button, which is the graphic of the thumbs up button. The likes and shares help us out so much, and we really appreciate you doing that, so thank you very much. So the demonstration for tonight is not strictly bag related, but I did use a bit of cork, or you could use leather in this project as well. And it's for an infinity scarf. I know there are other infinity scarf instructions already out there, but I sort of wanted to add a little bit of a different element to mine. and that is the cork or leather cuff. So I made my cuff in ocean blue cork. The fabric that I used for my infinity scarf is a rayon fabric. I actually used 2 different rayons designed by Cotton and Steel. And the rayon, it's not a stretchy fabric, but it just feels really sort of on the silky side and a little bit luxurious. Oh, Danny says I'm blocking my mic. All right, so I'm going to talk for a second and then I'm going to put the scarf back down. So this is just really quick to put together. No? Okay. All right, my mic is right here, so I'll show you that scarf. It's a really quick video instruction to put it together. You'll just need 1 2-yard piece of fabric and a little scrap of cork or leather for the cork or leather cuff. So here's the video tutorial to make that, and enjoy. Okay, before we begin, you'll need to print out the template for the cork or leather cuff, and you'll want to open the template file using Adobe Reader. It's a free program that you can download to your computer device, or if you don't already have it. And if you'll notice on the page, there's a 1-inch square and a 4-centimeter square. You'll want to measure either of those squares to make sure that they measure exact. So I'm going to take my quilting ruler and measure the 1-inch square, and it needs to be exactly either 1 inch or 4 centimeters. It shouldn't be slightly smaller or slightly larger. It needs to be exact. Okay, so go ahead and cut out your pattern piece along the outside of the thick black line, and when you've done so, this is what it should look like. So you'll use this piece to cut out from either cork or leather. So I'm using cork and I'm just using 1 layer of fabric. If you're using a really thin layer, you'll want 2 layers instead. So you'll need to cut out 2, and you'll glue those wrong sides together and then top stitch the outer edge to secure the layers. But for the cork, I'm just using the 1 layer. Okay, if you'll notice on the pattern piece, there's markings for the female snap and the male snap. I'm going to mark those on my fabric right now. Okay, so I'm going to use an awl to make punches through the fabric where the holes are. You can just use a pen or whatever sharp tool that you have to make the holes. Okay, so I'm going to lay this on the right side of my fabric and use a fabric marker just to mark placement for the female and the male snaps. Okay, so you can use whatever brand of snaps that you prefer. I like using the snap setter tool, and then you'll need a hammer to go along with that if you're using this tool. So I'm going to go ahead and install the female snaps first, which are the ones that are closest to the edge of the fabric. And the female snaps are going to be installed with the caps going through the right side of the fabric and the female portion showing on the wrong side of the fabric. So I have these caps, and yours might have rings depending on what type of snaps that you've purchased. So I'm going to go ahead and push that cap through the right side of the fabric, and then I'm going to lay it on the snap setter tool. I'm going to place the second layer of the snap setter tool followed by the female portion of the snap. And you'll want to make sure to use a hard surface for installing the snap so that it's fully secured. So I'll repeat the same process for the second female snap. Again, I'm going to lay that on the tool, place the second layer of the tool in place, followed by the female portion of the snap. Okay, so now let's install the male snaps on the opposite end. So when installing the male snaps, this time the snap portion is going to be on the right side of the fabric like this, and then the cap is going to be on the wrong side if you have the cap. So I'm actually going to bring out that pattern piece again and remark on the wrong side of the fabric. And then I'm going to place my caps through the wrong side so that the snap will be on the right side. Okay, so now your cork or leather cuff is finished, and let's get on to cutting out the fabric. Okay, now we're going to make the scarf. So grab your 2-yard cut of fabric and fold it so that the long edges meet. So basically your selvage edges will be touching, and you'll cut down the folded edge. So you'll end up with 2 pieces of fabric that are each 72 inches by 22 inches. If you'd like to use 2 different fabrics for your scarf, that's fine. You'll need 2 yards of each print, and you'll end up being able to make 2 scarves if you'd like to. So each of my pieces again measures 72 inches by 22 inches, and I went ahead and placed them right sides together. So if you end up with a little bit of a shortage on your fabric, or you need to adjust the measurements, because this is such a big piece of fabric, it's a little bit flexible. So if you need to cut less than 72 inches by 22 inches, that's completely fine. Okay, so we're going to place the fabrics right sides together, and we're going to sew both of the long edges using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, you'll continue sewing down the entire length of the fabric, and you'll also repeat the same process with sewing a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the remaining long edge. Okay, now go ahead and reach in and pull everything right side facing out. You should have 1 long tube of fabric. So go ahead and place the fabric so that the seams are at the top and the bottom. So here's my seam up here, here's my seam down here, and I'm going to focus on laying this end flat. Okay, so I'm going to bring the other end so that it's directly on top of this edge. And actually, since I'm using 2 different fabrics, I want my fabrics to be sort of flipped, so when my scarf is on, you can see both of the fabrics equally. So I'm just going to twist my fabrics, and then I'm going to place them right sides together. So I'm going to start aligning the seams. And then I'm going to continue pinning all the way around, raw edges aligned, except I just need to leave an opening for turning everything right side out when the scarf is finished. So when working with either a bag or the scarf, I like to align the seams first, and then I'm just going to use my fingers to finger press that seam open, and then I'm going to pin the rest of the way so that it's easier to ease the fabric and make sure it's evenly distributed. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to start pinning right sides together. Okay, I'm going to flip this and grab the 2 remaining raw edges. And that's this area right here. And I'm going to continue pinning and just leave an opening right here. Okay, so I'm going to take this back over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and make sure you leave your opening so that we can flip everything right sides together, and then we'll close up that opening in the last step. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep pulling so that all of the wrong side goes through that opening. So this is what your scarf should look like. And let's address that opening here. So there's two ways to close up this opening, and it's a small opening, as you can see. You can either slip stitch the opening by hand, or you can close it by machine. So first you're going to press the opening toward the inside by 1/4 of an inch, just like we do when we're closing up an opening in the lining of a bag. And I have a video for slip stitching on my YouTube channel in case you're interested in closing your opening by hand. I'm just going to go ahead and close the opening by machine, and I'm going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, give your scarf a good press, and you can do that by using your fingers to roll out the seams and then press the fabric's wrong sides together, and then when you're finished, go ahead and snap that cuff on. All right, and you're all set. So you can actually add a cork or leather cuff to any infinity scarf. I have this knit infinity scarf, and I was thinking of adding a cuff to the knit scarf as well. So there's a few options as far as that. I wanted to talk about also the fabric because I saw there were some questions while the video was playing. So I used a rayon fabric, but you could use a whole myriad of fabrics. A jersey knit would be okay. I've seen some people make these in velveteen, lots of different fabrics, a lawn. Lots of different options for this, but this one is a rayon, and I've linked to the fabric that I use in the description in case you're interested in finding out more about the cotton and steel rayons, or there's some other rayons listed on that particular link that I've linked to as well. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, do you wear scarves? So either an infinity scarf, a warm scarf, like my knit scarf for winter, or perhaps you like decorative scarves with some of your outfits. So just let me know in the comments, do you wear scarves? So while the video was playing, Danny and I were kind of glancing through the comments, as we do sometimes, and we noticed that both Sharon and Mayate, I hope I pronounced that correctly, both lost husbands in the last few months. So sorry for your loss, and definitely sending prayers for strength and courage, especially for this holiday season, to both of you. All right, so I'm going to answer some questions live in just a minute. So if you have a question for me, either a sewing related question about bag making, or about a tool, go ahead and type your comment or question now in the comment area. Danny's going to put a few questions up and I'll answer them live. Before we get over to the questions, I wanted to announce the winner of last week's giveaway. The winner of the giveaway from last week was Lisa Benetham, so congratulations to you, Lisa. I contacted you late last night on social media, and as soon as we get your mailing address, we'll mail off your prize. Again, congratulations to Lisa. So, all right, Danny, take it away with some questions, or perhaps people are still commenting about my scarf question. All right, I see one from Lisa. I am sewing the hobo bag and having trouble with the top stitching around the edge of the bag. Is the top stitches supposed to catch the lining? So yes, so before you top stitch the top of the hobo bag, you'll want to press your fabrics so that your exterior and your lining fabrics are wrong sides together. And if you're using a fabric that shouldn't be pressed, like a leather or a cork, you can use wonder clips instead of pressing, and the wonder clips will hold the edges of the fabric nicely so that you can get a nice top stitch. But yes, your thread will be catching both the exterior and the lining fabric, and that compensating foot that I used at the beginning of tonight's chat would be really great for the top stitching, but your regular foot will work just as well for that also. Holly says, what is your favorite Christmas tradition? So my mom and dad usually have Christmas Eve at their house. That's probably my favorite. Danny started a new tradition. Danny is the type of person that has a hard time waiting to give someone a gift. Like he'll give a gift weeks in advance, but the tradition that we started with Danny is that we let the kids open one gift the night before the day before.
That's the tradition I started. I grew up that way.
Well, you started it with our family. So the kids get to open. Okay, Danny continued his family tradition of opening one gift early, so the kids enjoy that. They're trying to make it earlier and earlier. Like, hey, you know, they asked me the other day, hey, can we open our early gift now? And I said, no, not 2 weeks early. Like 1 day early is fine with me. But Danny can't wait. Danny likes to see the look on people's faces when they open their gift, definitely. Linda says, hi Sarah, can you design a bucket hobo bag with enclosed zipper on the top? I actually do have something similar on my list to get to pretty soon, because I've been trying in my head, fiddling with a design for something like that, but definitely with a top zipper. So I'll try to get to that after I finish the knitting bag. Gretchen says, are the compensating feet made for other machines? I'm assuming they are. I have not investigated it, so you'll want to check that out before you buy that. And I also, a note about that, the compensating foot for the Juki comes as both a right version and a left version. I have the right version, so it probably depends on how you formulate and go through your top stitching, but definitely the right compensating foot was the one that I purchased. Anita says, does rayon sew as easily as cotton? Yes, I had no issues with it slipping around. As you saw in the video, I used my Wonder Clips to hold the layers together, and it presses really nicely too. Actually, my scarf smells really nice because I was using flatter pressing spray to get all the wrinkles out of it. Here's what my flatter spray looks like. It comes in unscented, but I have currently the fig scent, so my scarf smells really good. Kendra says, are you going to do a waxed canvas bag? Yes, I also would like to do some more experimenting with waxed canvas. I also purchased a piece just so I could try it in a bag pattern, and I was thinking my waxed canvas bag would probably be using less or no interfacing. So I'm so into the structured bags, but I'm trying to sort of wrap my head around having a bag or a bag pattern with less or no interfacing, but I think that's kind of where I'm headed with the waxed canvas bag. So I'll see what I can come up with for that. Audrey says, didn't you get a compensating foot with your TL 2010Q? I got a right compensating foot with mine. So the foot that came with my Juki was a little bit different. It was a 1/4 inch foot, so it had a little metal bar that was approximately a 1/4 inch away where the needle goes. I found that I really don't use that foot hardly ever. I did when I first got the machine, but because my foot doesn't move up and down, it was always getting caught in the fabric. So I've since changed to a different foot, but I do still have that other foot, but it's a little bit different than that compensating foot with the spring loaded right portion. Georgia said, hi Sarah, would you consider writing a pattern for a nappy wallet? Yeah, I've actually had requests for that as well. A nappy wallet is, or a diaper wallet, kind of like a little clutch with diapering supplies in it. So I do have that on my list for a future bag. There's not enough time, not enough hours in the day. I wish there was a few more hours so I can get an extra bag pattern in here or there. Lou says, have you used a walking foot for your Juki? Could you do a future tutorial, please? Yeah, I'll write myself a note for that. I actually, even though my Juki did come with a walking foot, I purchased a Janome walking foot, which I know sounds odd, but I was told, I'm a member of a Juki group in Facebook, and I was told in the group that some members were purchasing Janome walking feet, and they were a lot quieter and easier to work with, and that's what I did. So I'll talk about that in a future show. Jerry says, Danny, we did that too growing up and continued it with the kids. Thank you, Dan. Danny likes to put up comments confirming that he's right. Hope says, have you thought of creating a dog harness? I actually have not, although I do have on my list for writing a pattern, which would be really basic and easy, but for a dog or cat collar. So maybe I'll kind of add harness into the mix. That would be really awesome. Super awesome. I'm sewing the binary pouch, and when putting on the sides, I noticed the center panel is about 1 inch smaller than the side panels. What is the best way to fix this? So I'm assuming you're past the point of no return. I'm not sure if your side panel printed out a different size than normal. You always want to use Adobe Reader to open up your pattern pieces and print it actual size. Why don't you send me an email and we'll talk about it off show. My email is sarah@sewsweetness.com, and that's Sarah with no H. You can also send me a photo of where you're at, and we'll troubleshoot it. There's never any situation that I've come across, at least, where the bag can't be finished. So go ahead and email me, and we'll talk about it. Tricia says, question, I am having trouble deciding which pattern to try next, the Bellevue pouch or the filigree pouch. Is the only difference the filigree has a double zipper. So yeah, one of the main differences between those two projects, the filigree double zip pouches does have the 2 zippers. The filigree isn't a crazy long pattern, but the Bellevue pouch is definitely super quick. So I guess it depends on if you're needing a quick sew for a last minute Christmas gift or not. I saw some really nice filigree pouches come through in the Facebook group recently. I made mine with ribbon trim down the front, but you could certainly omit that and just have a plain pouch if you'd like as well. Lori says, when do you use your thick sewing plate? So I recently mentioned on a live show that for my Juki I purchased a plate for thick fabric. So those of you that have needles that move back and forth, this won't apply to your machine. But since my machine is a straight stitch only machine, my needle hole is like a little pinprick. It's really tiny. So the plate that came with the machine has a really small hole. I purchased a plate for thick fabric. It's still a very small hole, but it's slightly larger. And the pro to having that thick thick fabric plate is that if you're sewing through thick layers, which you would be if you have interfacing as with a bag, as your needle comes through the thick layers, sometimes it kind of shifts to the side. And the good thing about having a little bit larger of a hole is as the needle shifts through the fabric, it'll still go through the hole, as opposed to that really small hole that comes with the original sewing machine. If your needle starts kind of shifting as it comes through, it'll hit the plate and break. So that's the reason to get the plate for thick fabric. And I don't switch my plates back and forth. I just leave the plate for thick fabric on there. I can sew within fabric as well, like quilting cotton or quilt blocks. So I just leave that thick fabric plate on there. Roxanne says, where did you get the scented fabric spray? I actually bought this online. I'm not sure if they have it on Amazon. I believe they do. It's called Flatter. It's made by Soak. Let me hold it sideways. There we go. I like the fig scent and the pineapple, but they do make it in unscented and several other scents as well, in case you don't like scents or scents bother you. I think the scents kind of bother Danny, so I try to use it sparingly, but it really smells good, and it's a starch alternative spray. Melanie says, Sarah, I use force lining instead of foam when I use waxed canvas, and it would be great. I'm not really sure what that is, actually. If you want to let me know in a follow-up comment, if Danny catches it, he can put it on the screen. Otherwise, maybe we can talk after the show's over. Priyanka says, Sarah, have you tried vinyl fuse for any quilting cotton and used for a bag? I actually did a demonstration earlier this year. You can probably find it by doing a search on my YouTube channel. But I tried 2 different types of iron-on vinyl. I tried the product by Pollen was my favorite, which is the vinyl fuse. And basically it just turns any fabric into a laminated fabric. So that's especially helpful if you're making a cosmetic bag, a lunch bag, even a diaper bag, something that you'd just like to be able to wipe clean. And the vinyl fuse will do that. So you can iron it onto your quilting cotton, your canvas, or whatever fabric you're using, and it makes it a laminated fabric. Ms. Marine says, Danny, is the infinity cuff pattern piece going to be put up after the show? It says 404. Oh, we saw some comments coming through while that video was playing. Hit refresh on your internet browser. I went into the back end of the website, and I'm not sure what was wrong with my original link, but I went ahead and fixed the link, and I tested it, and it should be working fine now. So if you check that link in the description for the infinity cuff pattern piece, it should be up and running, and it's just one page, one simple little piece to print out. Sue says, have you thought about making a travel jewelry holder? So I have a couple patterns from Minikin Season 2 that would be good for that. Let me see if I can grab any, if any. Oh, these 2 behind me. Okay, so these are both in Minikin Season 2. This one's called the Kanga Supply Roll, so you can use this for anything, sewing supplies, knitting needles, jewelry. It's 3-dimensional zippered pouches, and this is clear vinyl. Oh, Jessica agrees. Thank you, Jessica. And you can put your jewelry in here. These are all segmented pockets, so there's 4 separate pockets. And there's also a little loop that you can hang it on the back of a door or a hook if you'd like to. And then this is the glass cosmetic bag. This might be good for holding both jewelry and toiletries if you're traveling. So this portion has a mesh pocket and a clear vinyl pocket, and then there's areas for your bottles of shampoos or what have you, and then there's some more pockets in the front. So either of those would be great for jewelry and taking things with you when you're traveling. All right, Danny's calling that it on the questions for tonight, so let's get over to the giveaway. I went downstairs to the work area and I chose 6 rolls of cork fabric. So when we get our cork rolls, sometimes we have what we call a short end. So we sell the pieces of cork 18 inches wide, and sometimes we get to the end of the roll and it's not quite 18 inches. So these are quite large short ends, but I've got 6 pieces. Here's 3 colors for you right here, and then 3 prints. So 6 pieces in total. I'll choose one winner of the giveaway, one randomly drawn giveaway at the end of the day this Saturday, and all you have to do to enter the giveaway is answer my question in the comments either on Facebook or YouTube, and you can answer after the show if you're watching later on in the week. My question is, what was your favorite subject in school? So my favorite subject in school was English. I've always been really into writing. Never felt like writing a novel or a book or anything like that. Well, I did write a sewing book, but you know, at least a fiction book. But English was always my favorite. I feel like it helps me in my current job, writing sewing patterns and writing blog posts. I feel like I'm a decently strong writer, so English is still my favorite. Danny says math's better. Math is Danny's area, so I help the kids with the English and reading homework. Danny helps them with math and science. It all works out. So thank you for joining me for Social Sunday. I hope you have a wonderful week leading up to Christmas. Have a great week and happy sewing, everybody. Bye-bye.